So, I don't know if you heard me last week. I briefly said I'll do something on uh, the historical figure of Christ and one characteristics of proving that an historical event happened or an historical figure indeed lived. There are some fundamental criteria that has to apply to prove the existence of anything, whether you're Christian or not. When there are some fundamental things that the scientist does, and when you're going to prove anything of any historical nature. So the many infallible proofs of Jesus' resurrection, and I am going to put forth some arguments, and that our faith is not baseless. It's not a baseless thing. I think I spoke about this maybe, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago or further down in the year, that, we were having a discussion with John F. Kennedy came to Arkansas, but I wasn't alive, I wasn't around, but you had eyewitnesses who were there. Eyewitnesses, basically the highest evidence in any court, in any land. Who witnessed that he came to Arkansas. Where was this again, Sister Mary, you remember? There you go. So, that is somebody saying I was there. If you read First John, when John was speaking to the believers, John was very descriptive. He was redundant for emphasis. He said, I have seen him, I have examined him, I have looked upon him, I have touched him. Remember that? In First John? Yes, he was an eyewitness. He said, if there's any doubt, I was there. My mind wasn't fooling me. And if you thought that my mind wasn't fooling me, let me expand on my senses. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm saying this, that, Christianity has a solid foundation. And I hope that when I present this case to you, it's up to you to be able to sift through what I'm about to inform you. So, as believers, we face the critical question, do we have reasonable grounds for trusting in Jesus' resurrection? Many skeptics argue that faith alone is not enough to substantiate the resurrection of Jesus. However, history and logical evidence offer a compelling case that demands consideration. Professor Thomas Horner, an eminent historian, claimed, I know of no one fact consideration in the history of mankind which is proved by better and fuller evidence of every sort than the great sign which God has given us, that Christ died and rose again from the dead. Furthermore, Westcott noted that there is no historic incident better or more ferociously supported than the resurrection of Christ. Could these claims be true? How does evidence for Jesus' resurrection hold up to the scrutiny? So let us examine some evidence. The evidence scientists use to verify the existence of ancient historical figures relies on a few key forms of evidence. So this is what the scientists usually use. They are going to use primary written sources. Primary, the main primary means main written sources. Ancient manuscripts and inscriptions. Ancient manuscripts and inscriptions and writings often preserved as papyri, stone carving, or tablets are central to historical verification. For example, writings from Caesar's Gallic wars provide first-hand account, while inscriptions like the Rosetta Stone or Dead Sea Scrolls offer direct information about figures or events. So you understand that? Okay, so when archaeologists they find these stones, they have inscriptions, carvings, writings on them, pointing to a civilization. Am I saying that? Civilization prior to them. Thank you. Sometimes I don't get this. And then you have the secondary sources and historical records. These sources come from historians or authors writing about the figure from a second-hand perspective, often within a few generations of the individual, like Tacitus, Sosthenes, and Plutarch, for instance, wrote about Roman empires and other figures drawn from both oral traditions and documents events. And then you have archaeological evidence. And these are artifacts, and structures. Artifacts like coins, statues, monuments, or personal belongings of the figure provide direct physical evidence. Ancient cities and tombs are also valuable. For example, the tomb of King Tutankhamun or the city of Pompeii gives insight into the lives and identities of ancient individuals. Now, most time, and this may be orthodox to you, because most time church folks don't have these ones. These evidence that this is what we rely on. And it's not just us, everybody will rely on these facts to determine that there was an ancient civilization, to determine that, yes, indeed, this person lived. Why? Because this is what we found. These are the statues, these are the coins. You know, you find a coin, going back when it's worth a what? A lot of money, isn't it? Yeah. It's very significant to that era. Contemporary accounts and cross-references. When multiple sources across different regions reference a person or event, it strengthens historical credibility. For instance, the overlap between the Greek historian Herodotus' works and Persian records support the historicity of key events and figures from both civilizations. So both civilizations basically writing about the what? The same events that took place. It could be between them, you know, having wars and fighting, and they are what we call historical figures. They are overlapping and they are giving evidence of what took place. Study of inscriptions, like the hieroglyphics, writings. You know, you go to Egypt. I think I've been to Egypt. Right. But if you go in some of these pyramids, You will see some drawings, correct? I don't know if this was taught to you in school or you read about it. They call it hieroglyphics, and they are writings and drawings. They are messages. What actually took place. So if epigraphy examines and deciphers inscriptions that mention figures by name or title. This practice has been critical in verifying historical rulers like Pharaoh, the pharaohs, whose achievement and conquest were inscribed on monuments and temples across Egypt. You have also, we mentioned coin, numismatics, study of coins. Coins are some of the most reliable physical proof since they often bear the name or likeness of rulers and were widely circulated. Coins from ancient Greece, Rome, and other empires frequently depict emperors, kings, or other figures, solidifying their place in history. And then what we call textual criticism and dating methods. Historians and archaeologists use textual criticism to analyze and compare multiple versions of a text to verify its accuracy. Over time, methods like dating and analyzing and the analysis of material composition provide a time frame for these sources, verifying the period when a person might have existed. So, I hope you understand what I'm saying. This is what the scientist, regular person, the archaeologist, whoever is trying to figure out if this event indeed happened, or it's not this. Sorry about that. Oh, we just got it. If I can project my voice a little low. Okay? Now, watch this, brethren. This is the fun part. You might have not understood that part, but I hope you did. But look at the Greek New Testament manuscripts. A total Greek manuscript. I'm talking about the manuscripts that put the New Testament together. Over 5,800 Greek manuscripts of the New Testament have been discovered dating back to the early centuries after Christ. 5,000 what? And we say we're in the modern time, isn't it? You can flow off copies and stuff. They didn't have that luxury. They didn't, and I wish, I wish I could have brought my laptop and pull up some of the manuscript just to see how they wrote in Greek. It was very tedious. Now, when you are doing copies, people are going to make some mistake, and so that is why you verify across to see whether this is authentic. But 5,800 Greek manuscripts of the New Testament, yes.
I was watching, listening to, I can't remember where I got it from, but the book of Isaiah,
Yes.
predicts all about Christ. There's Christ in Isaiah all over. If
Yeah.
you maybe get to this, I don't know, but this
Yeah.
was so shocking.
Yeah.
It talks about virgin birth. It
Yeah.
talks about
Yeah.
being crucified,
Yeah.
riding in on a donkey, all kinds of
Yeah.
things that Christ fulfilled.
Yes. Yeah.
Like what was it, 500 or 700 years? I think it was 700 years later.
Yeah.
And the Dead Sea Scrolls
Uh-huh.
were discovered in 1947 that date back to before Christ was alive.
Yeah.
And they have a complete copy of Isaiah,
Mm-hmm.
and it says exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
In our Latin Vulgate, and
Yeah.
Septuagint, and all of the copies that we have today say,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which vindicates and verifies
Yeah.
that nothing has changed
Nothing has changed.
in what we have, and that just totally blew me away. There is no way you can prove that it did not happen,
Yeah.
and it did not, and Jesus did not exist, and Jesus did not fulfill all these prophecies.
Exactly. And it goes back to the professor, this man, this professor, Thomas Arnold, he said, listen, there is so much evidence that these people are using. There is so much more evidence over there. That's what he said. So the same evidence that I have presented, that the scientists use, the primary one, written sources, the secondary sources and historical records, the archaeological evidences, which are artifacts and stuff, all these contemporary accounts, a study of inscription, all these study of coin. He's saying it's an overwhelming evidence when it comes on to Jesus Christ. Key manuscripts. The key manuscripts are the Codex Sinaiticus, the 4th century, one of the oldest and most complete copies of the New Testament. The Codex Sinaiticus. The Codex Vaticanus, 4th century, another ancient and almost complete New Testament manuscript. The Codex Alexandros, the 5th century, nearly complete Bible with both Old and New Testament portions. So, listen to the validation. Scholars validate these manuscripts through textual criticism. Textual criticism the word criticism is not a bad thing when you say textual. It is simply comparing and analyzing and making sure that everything is indeed correct. That's what it's called textual criticism. So comparing variations across manuscripts to understand the earliest possible text. Methods includes dating the handwriting, linguistic analysis, means comparing language patterns. These are the things that were used. The Latin Vulgate manuscripts, total manuscripts, there are more than 10,000 Latin manuscripts of the Bible, largely based on St. Jerome, Latin Vulgate translation, completely in the late 4th century. Key manuscripts is Codex Amiationos, oldest surviving complete Vulgate manuscript from the 8th century. Validation manuscripts are validated by comparing them to early copies and analyzing Jerome translation techniques and cross-referencing them with Greek texts. So I could go on and on and on. The Bentley fragment is another one. A part of the old Syriac manuscript discovered in the 19th century by Robert Bensley, known for containing early portions of the gospel in Syriac. Now, these are valuable information. They are what? Valuable information. So the total manuscripts, listen to this now. The total manuscripts count and cross validation. Total manuscripts count and cross validation with the Greeks, Latin, Syriac, and other language versions combined. There are over 24,000 ancient biblical manuscripts. 24,000. So our faith and journey of Christianity, it's not like what you think some people want to make it out to be. It is on a solid foundation. It's on a solid foundation. And I want you, I'm pausing, I want you to think about that. Very, very solid.
I think the heater's got the buzz now.
Oh, the heat, oh yes. The heater is on.
Y'all don't want the heater on when you turn it off. I thought I'd try to knock the chill off.
Okay. So, yeah. This is something to be excited about. Because if the scientists and the atheists use the same kind of methodology to talk about historical figures, our claims are not baseless. With all of the evidence being presented here this morning. Now, let us go to this document, which is older than my great-great-great-grandma. Yeah. The Bible records numerous instances where Jesus appeared to the people after his resurrection. These post-resurrection appearances are significant because they provide first an account of those who saw Jesus alive. Mary Magdalene. Jesus appeared first to Mary Magdalene, who shared the news with the disciple John chapter 20, verse 14. After his resurrection. Peter, the Apostle Paul, notes that Jesus appeared to him specifically 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 5. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 5. Cleopas and another disciple on the road to Emmaus, Jesus appeared to two disciples who later recognized him. Luke chapter 24, 13 to 34. 11 apostles with Thomas. When Thomas was present, Jesus invited him to touch his wounds. John chapter 20, 26 through to 39. Just in case his eyes were fooling him. Just in case his what? His eyes touch. That's another sense, sense of touch. Just in case he has some vision problem. 7 apostles by the Sea of Tiberias. Jesus appeared to the 7 disciples as they were fishing. John 21, 1 and 2. 11 apostles on the mountain in Galilee. Jesus appeared to his disciples on the mountain in Galilee, Matthew 28, 16 through to 17. More than 500 people. Jesus appeared to over 500 people at one time, many of whom were still alive when Paul wrote about it in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 6. You know, I've never heard of such a conspiracy lasting so long. You want to tell me them people are more brilliant than the people now? More sophisticated in how to cook up something? Okay, let me explain what I'm saying. So, you have people who have art galleries, right? And they can put something, they can, who's the, Michelangelo, who was it? One of these great brands. Leonardo. And so then, these, what you would call them, people who test these paintings and verify them and say they are okay, they can cook up something, you know, and put it up there and sell it for millions, isn't it? Just need those people to say, well, yeah, this is a genuine thing. And you start bidding for something false. But how long would that happen? Think about it. How long do you think they can do that? For centuries. James. Jesus appeared to his brother James, who became a leader in the early church. 1 Corinthians 15:7. At the ascension, Jesus appeared to his disciples and ascended into heaven. Acts 1, verse 9. But what about the conversion of Paul? Huh? What about that?
Probably when the man was scholar in all the lands. He was a Roman citizen. He went to Greek universities. He had a mentor that raised him from youth.
Hey, Tom, I'm just glad you just put that in.
In the ways of being a Jew.
Hey, brother Tom, you give me chills right now. Yeah. I'm glad you put that in.
And he was a big guy.
He was
a big
guy in society. Yeah. Paul's background, Paul formerly Saul is his Hebrew name, was a devout Jew and a persecutor of Christians in Acts 8, 1-4. He was committed to stopping the spread of Christianity. He was going to put a stop to this, you know, that was his mission. Huh? Until he had an encounter. I don't know if you're excited like that. Oh, I am excited, but I'm excited. You know, when I talk about this, I'm in the right place. This is something for you to be excited about.
That's what you can get about.
Okay.
Comes on automatically.
Never heard it.
It scared me.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is something to be excited about. So while on his way to Damascus, Paul had a dramatic encounter with the risen Christ, which changed his life forever. Acts 9, 1-8. Paul's ministry, Paul endured incredible hardships for his faith, proving his conviction in the truth of Jesus' resurrection. 2 Corinthians 11, 23-27. So Paul's conversion is a compelling proof of the resurrection because he went from a persecutor to one of Christianity's greatest advocates, willing to suffer and die for the faith he once tried to destroy. You know, anyone ever read any of Lewis's books? What's his first name?
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis. Yes. Ever read any of his books? But did you know that C.S. Lewis was an atheist before he became a Christian? Yeah, just briefly investigate this guy. Let's briefly investigate this C.S. Lewis guy. He talked about, Christ was either a lunatic, he was either a made-up story guy or something. That you need to examine this C.S. Lewis and his testimony about Jesus becoming Christian. He was an atheist. Now, consider Peter, who once denied Jesus 3 times in Matthew 26, 69 to 75. Yet within weeks, he stands before crowds, boldly proclaiming Jesus as the resurrected one, Messiah. I mean, that could do it just about anything to somebody, because you saw Jesus hanging from a cross, being crucified, you saw that he was buried, and then he got up. It's like, what would that do to you? Huh? So he was once a denier of Jesus Christ, but now he doesn't what? Really care what anybody wants to do to him, because he's going to preach Christ and him what? Crucified. He was flogged and beaten to stop talking about this in Acts. You remember that? And what did Peter say? I rather to obey who? I rather obey God than what? Than So he was bold. Peter confronts Jewish leaders in Acts 2, 23 to 36. Peter and the other apostles continue to preach despite threats and being beaten. So people are willing to die for beliefs they hold to be true, but no one endures torture and death for what they knew is false. The apostles didn't believe, they knew. And if the resurrection were fabricated, one might expect at least one disciple to recant under pressure. When they are being tortured. He said that Peter was crucified upside down. He requested that because he wasn't worthy to be crucified right side up. Yeah. Oh, it was Stephen when he was being stoned in Acts chapter 7 and verse 52. He said, Father, forgive them. Lay not this sin to their what? He could have, to the charge, he could have recanted. He could have said, well, it's his fault. Dude was ready to meet his maker, which happened. Huh? And I think he made a prayer. Same thing, Father, forgive them, right? Same thing that Jesus said, right? Huh? See the similarity? And And this is after the resurrection of Christ. The fact of the empty tomb remains unchallenged even by the enemies of Jesus. Roman guards and the sealed tomb in Matthew chapter 27, 26 through 64. Enemies confirm the empty tomb, Matthew chapter 28, 11 through to 15. The Jewish leaders could have easily disproven the resurrection by producing Jesus' body, yet they resorted to bribery to spread the rumor of a stolen body. This reaction reaffirms that even Jesus' enemies acknowledged the tomb was empty. Logically, if Jesus' followers had stolen his body, they would have expected at least one of the disciples to admit this under pressure. But no such admission ever came, reinforcing the claim of the resurrection. You can't find a body. Huh? What happened? The gods were there. But if you read the story, which don't have much time, just go back to it. What the gods were recounting. What did they say? There was a bright light and that was it. Huh? The stone that was rolled there, that, you see?
You know, the guards would have been executed.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but they would have been executed.
Yeah.
For letting someone either steal the body or it rise and walk away. They let those guards.
Oh yeah, they would have fought to the death. They would have fought to the death. There's no way that could have happened. That is why the Philippian jailer drew his sword, because he thought that Silas and Paul had escaped. And when they were praying and singing, and an earthquake shook the prison, and the bars flew from the prison. The God, knowing what was going to happen, drew his sword to take his life. Now, and he became a Christian that same night. He became a Christian. The Philippian jailer became. You remember? In Acts. So what Brother Tom is saying is indeed correct. Those soldiers wasn't going to let anybody come and steal anybody. Or let anyone come and steal the body of Jesus. A skeptic may ask, is there any evidence outside of Scripture, historically, accounts of the empty tomb and the rapid spread of Christianity are well documented by historians like Josephus. Josephus was a Jew. Additionally, the change in the disciples like Peter's shift from fear to boldness aligns with logical behavioral evidence that something monumental occurred after Jesus' death. So scripture and the resurrection align with the evidence of God's existence, such as the cosmological, moral, and teleological arguments. So the cosmological argument, the universal existence, from where did the universe origin? Logically, something cannot come from nothing. Scientists indicate the universe had a beginning, ruling out external existence. God, the uncaused cause, fulfilled the explanation in Psalm chapter 17, verse 1. Can you read that for me? Psalm chapter 19, verse 1. An astrophysicist, John O'Keefe, noted, if the universe had not been made with the most exacting precision, we could never have come into existence. Psalms 19 and verse.
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork.
The moral argument, existence of right and wrong. Morality cannot emerge from inanimate matter. Despite atheist argument, morality's universality in Romans 2:14 and 16 points to a divine standard. Even secular thinkers acknowledge an inherent sense of good and evil, a conscience that evolution alone cannot produce. This moral law points to a moral law giver. So, as Christians, we are called not just to believe, but to always be ready to give an answer. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. The resurrection of Jesus is historically verified, logically consistent, and unparalleled in evidentiary support among ancient events. Encourage your listeners knowing Jesus' resurrection is both fact and faith compels us to live with full assurance that our Savior lives. Any questions?
So all of the 12, 13 apostles, I guess, and Peter was 14. But I think all but one was executed for being a Christian. Was it John that lived his life out? One of them that lived his life out. I don't know. But all of those apostles to die upside down on a cross or or beheaded or imprisoned for life, or all they had to done was say that it was a hoax and they'd been let go.
Yeah.
None of them, all of them feared the afterlife more than what moments to them in this life. To the point of hanging upside down. I can't even stand on my head, much less hang on the cross upside down. Just the sheer agony and torment that must have been. And that's convincing enough to me that, I may have seen a UFO once or twice, but if someone asked me to die or denounce it, I'd denounce that I saw it. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold to it, if I don't know that I would have an intimate relationship with that. And they all did, and they knew it was for real.
And they remember what Christ said. Don't fear those who can kill the body. Put your trust in the person who can both kill body and soul. They understood that after the resurrection. They understood that. But the arguments that I put forward, I'm telling you that they're overwhelming, tangible evidence. These documents, and there are scientists who are convinced. I can't remember their name. I think it's a couple of guys who went out on their journey. I should have remembered them when I'm doing this. They went on a journey to disprove that Jesus Christ is a real figure, and came back believing that he is. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get these two names for you. I'm so sorry. They went on. You think it would want two, because two is a credible source, not just one. They went on their way to disprove They wanted to disprove Christianity, and they came back a believer. It was just too much evidence. And a lot of people believe that Alexander the Great lived. There's not much evidence about Alexander the Great. I can tell you that. There's not much like Jesus was. Yes, sir.
My friend just got back from a month-long vacation over in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And he said, Tom, it really meant a lot to me to be right on the ground where Paul was shipwrecked, in the island there, and
Malta?
walk the areas that Paul did his mission trips on and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I said, does it really connect you? He goes, it really did. It really connected me a lot.
There are some people believe that Jerusalem doesn't exist. And all these Bible places that the Bible talk about don't exist. I wish I could take them there. So, church, pray for me and I'll do the same, but this is not something false. The amount of evidence that is there. The people went on their way trying to disprove and coming back to say, yeah, it's overwhelming. I will try and find those two guys. And they're good scientists too. They're good guys. But they use the same methodology to disprove and how to prove something exists. And they found so much evidence that they had to tell the truth. Thank you for your time. Let's